The 10th stage. Then Christian addressed his companion. Well, come with me, my good friend Hopeful, for I see that you and I must walk by ourselves again. So I saw in my dream that they went on ahead at a strong pace, while ignorance limped along behind them. Then Christian said, I feel great pity for this poor man, because his journey will come to a sorrowful end. Unfortunately, in our town, there is an abundance of people in his condition, whole families, yes, even whole streets, with many being pilgrims too. So if there are many like him in our parts, how many do you think must there be in the place where he was born? Hopeful asked. Indeed, this is true, Christian said. For the word says, He has blinded their eyes, lest they should see. But now that we are by ourselves, tell me, what do you think of such men? Do you think that at any time they have convictions of sin, and so as a consequence have fears about the danger of their condition? No, I would rather that you answer that question yourself, for you are older and have more experience. Very well, Christian said. I would say, in my opinion, that sometimes they may have such fears, but because they are naturally ignorant of spiritual truth, they do not understand that such convictions contribute to their good. Therefore, they desperately seek to stifle them, while they presumptuously continue to flatter themselves concerning the good state of their own hearts. Hopeful's head bobbed his agreement. I do believe, as you say, that fear tends to benefit men and to make them right in the beginning of their pilgrimage and to prompt them to go the right way. Christian grew enthusiastic. Without a doubt, this is what happens if it is the right fear. For the word says, the fear of the Lord is the beginning of knowledge. Proverbs chapter 1, verse 7. How would you describe right fear? Hopeful asked. I'd say you can know that it is true or right fear based on three things. By its arousal. It is caused by conviction of sin. It drives the soul to believe in Christ for salvation. It gives birth to and maintains in the soul a great reverence of God, His word, and His ways. So, this soul is kept tender by making it afraid to turn to the right or left from these affections to anything that may dishonor God, break its peace, grieve the Spirit, or cause the enemy to speak of God with reproach. Well said, Christian. I believe you have spoken the truth. Have we now almost passed through the enchanted ground? Why, are you weary of this conversation? Oh, no, not at all, Hopeful said. I would just like to know where we are. We don't have more than 2 miles further to go now. Nevertheless, let's return to our topic of discussion. Now, the ignorant generally don't know that such convictions of sin tend to cause them to fear, and it is for their good. Therefore, they seek to stifle them. In what ways do they seek to stifle them? Hopeful asked. There are 4 ways. They think that those fears are created by the devil, though in fact they are truly from God. In thinking this way, they resist them as things that would cause their defeat. They also think that these fears tend to spoil their faith, when, even though as deluded poor men, they do not have any faith at all. Therefore, they harden their hearts against them. They presume they should not have fears, and therefore, in spite of them, they put on a vain show of confidence. They see that those fears tend to strip away their pathetic displays of self-righteousness, and therefore they resist them with all their might. Said, I confess to knowing something of this myself, for before I knew the truth about myself, my condition was just as pathetic. Well, let us leave our neighbor ignorance by himself at this time, and decide upon another question profitable for discussion. I agree wholeheartedly, Hopeful said. But again, I ask that you begin. Well then, Christian said, about 10 years ago, did you know a man by the name of Temporary in your parts? He was a man enthusiastic about religion then. Know him? I certainly did. He lived in Graceless, a town about 2 miles from Honesty, and he lived next door to a man by the name of Turnback. That's right. Turnback actually lived under the same roof with him. Well, at one time, that man was very much awakened spiritually. I believe at that time he had some awareness of his sins and of the wages that were due in this regard. I hold the same opinion, Hopeful said, for since my house was not more than 3 miles from him, he would often come to me with many tears. Truly, I pitied the man, and was not altogether without hope for him. But one may see, it is not everyone who cries, Lord, Lord, who proves to be a genuine Christian. Christian nodded in understanding. He once told me that he was determined to go on pilgrimage, just as we are now. But all of a sudden, he grew acquainted with one save self, and then he became a stranger to me. Since we are talking about him, Hopeful said, let us spend a little time to ask the reason for his sudden backsliding and for others like him. This may be profitable, Hopeful, but I ask that you begin this time. Very well, Hopeful said. In my judgment, I see 4 reasons for it. Though the consciences of such men are awakened, yet their minds are not changed. Therefore, when the power of guilt diminishes, the very thing that provoked them to be religious ceases to have any effect. For this reason, they naturally turn to their former course again. We see the same reaction with a dog that is sick and vomits up what he has eaten. So long as his sickness prevails, he vomits and throws up everything in his stomach. Not that he does this of a free mind, if we may say a dog has a mind, but rather because of his troubling stomach. However, when his sickness passes and his stomach feels better, he turns around and licks up all the vomit, and so what is written is true. A dog returns to its own vomit. 2 Peter chapter 2, verse 22. Now, I say, as a person may be enthusiastic about heaven, but only because they sense and fear the torments of hell. But as their sense and fear of damnation chills and cools, in the same way their desires for heaven and salvation cool also. Then it comes to pass that when their guilt and fear are gone, their desires for heaven and happiness die, and they return to their former course in life again.